Afternoon and welcome to Luzern and the international press launch of the next generation of professional chainsaws from Husqvarna. My name is Margareta Finstedt and I will be your host today. Let us begin.
For me, there are no real ordinary work days. Every day is unusual in so many different ways.
Loggers are proud people. They work hard, they deserve to be proud.
I strive to be, as best I can, a good arborist or a good professional.
I do like my job. Try to do what's right.
Еще нравится, естественно, как работать с хорошим инструментом.
Anything that helps make my job safer, easier, more efficient, I like it.
It has to be reliable. It has to be up to the job. Most of all, it's got to keep working when we want it to work.
Tough trees, tough job. You got a tough saw for the job?
It's a pretty amazing saw.
I like it better than the 372 personally.
The heat barrier between the cylinder and the carburetor are all going to help that saw last a little bit longer in this heat.
I was amazed for the size that it is, how much power that it has.
Dealing with the snow, I would think, in the wintertime would be the worst of it.
In the winter, it gets to be minus 40 degrees Celsius.
Het is koud, warm, sneeuw, rekken. Ik denk dat het is tussen wenn stotzige klein is.
Boy, this saw is nice and light, great balance, really easy to move across the job site with.
Nice handling. Feels very well balanced. It doesn't feel as heavy as I thought it would.
And also how the auto-tune deals with the different fuel and altitude up here. The guys have been working really hard, about 60 trees a day. I've been working alongside them, and I tell you, it's hard, hot work.
You will get more production out of the saw in a longer period.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 572 XP. Now, this chainsawing you just saw were experts from the Husqvarna H team using the 572 XP. They're all the best of the best, and some of you will get to meet them later on, and can follow them in the films that we have around the world. Let's bring them inside. Please welcome Tim Bendel, 30 years as an arborist and forester, and 20 years as an instructor and assessor. Urs Amstutz, world champion in combined bucking and member of the Swiss logging team. Andy Campbell, chainsaw instructor and assessor, the technical leader of the UK logging team. Josephine Hedger, instructor and assessor, European tree climbing champion 3 times, world tree climbing champion in 2008, 2010, and 2014. And Philip Amstutz, yes, it's the brother of Urs, member of the Swiss logging team and world champion in tree felling. And last but not least, Mr. Martin Götz, boardmaster, arborist, chainsaw trainer, and medalist from the climbing championships in Italy. This is the H team. Thank you so much. We'll catch up with you later. Andy, could you stay behind a little bit? The film you saw in the introduction showing how the chainsaw have been tested around the world. Andy's actually been traveling to all of these places where you've been documenting the testing. What surprised you the most from your trip?
I suppose the scale.
Oops. Sorry.
Okay, the scale of the challenges which face both a logger and his chainsaw on a day-to-day basis in such extreme conditions.
And considering the vast differences, Siberia, Colombia, British Columbia, and Africa, biggest differences and similarities, would you say?
Well, the similarities are that every logger's focus is to get timber on the truck and therefore bread on the table. And the main differences are their climates and their environments under which a chainsaw is expected to achieve that.
Right. And considering these big differences, then, what would you say is the most challenging for the logger himself or herself and the chainsaw itself?
I suppose out of everywhere that I visited, if you're looking for the heat and the cold and the terrain and altitude, it has to be Canada. That was pretty extreme. It had every single challenge for a saw and a logger that you can imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I know you got your 572 XP quite early on, so you've been running it for a lot of hours already.
Yeah.
How would you describe it? What makes you happy about it?
Well, so far it's reliable for sure. The maneuverability and the power to weight has increased my productivity, and I'm hoping, and I'm fairly confident also in its durability. So.
Great. Thank you so much, and we'll catch up with you later. I'll take that one. Sure. Oops. So, thank you, Age Team. So why are we then launching a new generation, and what is it that makes it legendary already? Why are we claiming it legendary chainsaws? Here to tell you more in a little bit is the Global Director of Chainsaws at Husqvarna, Mr. Jens Simmons.
Thank you very much. Husqvarna is a legendary company, and we have legendary people that have come before us, and we stand on the shoulders of those giants here even today to develop and to produce legendary equipment like the one that you see here. This is a lot of years in the making. And we're going to go through some of the details today of how we have designed this and built this next legend. I can assure you, in my 20 years that I've been a part of this great company, that every day we get up and we think about our customers first. As a matter of fact, it's part of our mantra, if you will, customers first in all of our actions. And it is truly that has inspired the design and the build of this product that you see here, this next legendary chainsaw. So with that being said, let's take you through a little bit of that journey. What it takes to be a legend. I think, that's a name or a word that might get thrown around a little bit easily sometimes. So I challenge that a little bit to say, well, what is a legend? And did we meet that qualification? And you see a few legends up here on the screen, some of my personal favorites, right? You'll see Mr. Steve McQueen. That is an American icon, right? A legend in American cinema. But his name is really known around the world as a legend in cinema, in film. So it's synonymous, with a few things. But regardless, it's a name known around the world. Over here, a little tip of the hat to where we are today, right? Switzerland, the Tag Heuer, and specifically the Tag Heuer Monaco. The Monaco is a special timepiece that is an aspirational brand, if you will, within Tag, right? And so it has to be aspirational, I would say, to be a legend. That's a legendary chainsaw designed in the 60s that's still sold today. Down here in the lower left for you, that is a 1968 Mustang GT, right? And that is a car that has been driven on the streets of the U.S., one of the best or greatest muscle cars of all time, but it can be found in the streets of Europe, it can be found in Asia, it can be found anywhere around the world. Again, still driving today. And then another tip of the hat for our own history, the Husqvarna Silverpilen that you see there, a legendary dirt bike. And this one, the legend here, came up just 3 days ago. I was on an elevator in a hotel, and we got into a conversation with a customer of ours, and he talked about 40 years ago how he had a Husqvarna motorcycle. That's a legend, if you're still talking about it 40 years later. And we are no different. Those chainsaws that you see behind me there, those are legends. They fit all that criteria, right? Known, those those names, the 180, the 272, the 372 that's in operation today, the 141, the Model 90. These are chainsaws that people know 40 years later, 50 years later. They're known all around the world. They're aspirational products, equipment that people aspire to own. And that's why we can say, we know what it takes to build a legend. We know what a legend is. And that's why we use that to describe our 572. The next legendary chainsaw is truly here. Moving a little bit further along, we have to also understand what it takes to build a legend. And this is a combination of not only really smart and really great engineers, which we have, but it's getting out and really understanding our customer. And you see some of their faces here, be it a logger, be it a forester, be it a rescue worker, be it a firefighter, a tree care company, an operator for a utility line clearance organization, an arborist that climbs every day. There are different applications, there are different requirements, there are different needs that they each have to build the best chainsaw in the world, to build a legendary chainsaw like the 572 XP or the 565. We have to understand that customer. We also have to understand and talk to our dealers. Our independent servicing dealers around the world are arguably the best knowledge bank of information, of two-stroke engine technology, of what it takes to not only have a saw run every day at optimal performance, but to keep it running. They are an extremely important part of our design and development. So we stay close to our operators, we stay close to our customers, we stay close to our dealers. And yes, we have some great engineers. That is the combination that makes a legendary chainsaw. But as we go around, as we do that research, as we do that study, this is really the equation. It comes really down to this. The saw has to be reliable. Andy actually mentioned it when he was talking up here. Right? And he mentioned it in this way. It puts food on the family's table. The customers that we have rely on this tool to put food on their family's table. Their family rely on them to bring home what it takes to keep their livelihoods going. That's reliability at its extreme. And that's what we think about when we design a product like this, when we build a product like this. How about durable? Durable is different than reliability. Durable means that these saws, just like their operators, are working in the toughest environments in the world. Sometimes very dangerous environments. And yes, they have to rely on them, but they also have to hold up to those elements. Those big trees that we talked about, that Andy just mentioned in British Columbia, or the daily on and off the truck, in a tree care organization, or again, fighting the fires, and everything in between. They have to hold up to the extreme conditions that the saws go through. And then, of course, performance. Our customers perform at optimal, at peak. Their equipment needs to as well. Again, for the logger, it's money, right? Time is money. Productivity, profit. Every board that's produced out of that tree brings a little bit of money in the pocket, right? That's performance. If it's a tree care organization, an arborist, right, and that crew, it's keeping the account. It's growing. It's keeping up with the competition. It's a small business that's going to the next level. But performance is key. But that equation, reliability, durability, performance, add those together, and what we say is you get endurance. And that's, at the end of the day, what we strove for. An enduring, legendary saw, right? Something that takes the abuse, that you can rely on, that performs in all conditions. That's endurance. How do we prove it? It wasn't just about designing it. It wasn't just about building it. It wasn't about doing the research. We can't just be academic. We have to prove what we say. And as we mentioned, this team up here, as well as many others around the world, have done some of the most rigorous testing that we've ever done for any product in the company. Arguably the most rigorous testing ever with the company for any product. Be it the big wood, the big trees of British Columbia, be it the urban forests, right? The canopy, the urban canopies of the United States with tree care. We tested there. We tested in Siberia in the coldest possible conditions and make sure that you could rely on it there. We tested in arid and hot and dirty and dusty Australia and Africa. We tested in every possible environment to make sure that we can prove what we say before it ever reaches those dealers and those end users. And I'm here to say we are confident that we have done just that. We have proved that the next legendary chainsaw, the 572 and 565, are here. And speaking of here is where they will be. Here's the rollout. We are going to launch first. You're part of a very special event right now in Switzerland, Austria, and Poland. That'll be the first rollout starting in just weeks from now. And then very soon thereafter, the rest of Europe. And then later on that year, for the seasonality in North America, we will roll it out to the North American markets later in 2018, and then eventually the rest of the world. It's a responsible rollout. It's a rollout that we will watch with passion for this great product that we have here today. And if you're from those markets, it's coming to you very soon. But that's the background. That's where we've come from. That's what is in the soul of this legendary chainsaw. But there's also the bones, right? There's the DNA. There's the nuts and bolts. And with that, there are some key features that we're going to show you today, we're going to talk about in a moment, and we're going to prove to you later on like I said, the bones of this legendary chainsaw. These are the 6. You'll find 12% higher cutting capacity. You'll find an excellent power-to-weight ratio. Cooling capacity of 20%, of up to 20% or more. Optimized air filtration. 10 times quicker adjustment for our air-fuel mixture, making it accelerate better, making it more responsive. And then also we have a brand new X-Cut chain we're going to talk about. But I've already talked too long. Let me turn it over to the global product manager for the 70cc chainsaw and those above, Mr. Arne Isaksson.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes. In the pickup truck in front of us, we have two people. It's Warren and it's George. They're professional loggers. They live in the interior of British Columbia. Within 1 hour, they will meet each other at George's place. They do that every morning at 5 o'clock. They drive 2 hours to get out in the forest. We saw Warren in one of the films. He said, "Loggers, we are proud people. We deserve to be proud. We are hardworking." And they deserve to be proud. And they have helped us so much in this journey to develop a nice chainsaw. And it's great to have that feeling, it's great to have that personal relation, but it's also a big responsibility. Because, like he said to me, George, I'm going out there, it takes me 2 hours to get to the work. I'm walking up this hill. If it doesn't start, I blame you for that. Here are some of the challenges we've been facing with this chainsaw development, as all other chainsaw developments. A 70cc chainsaw is a chainsaw that is sold and utilized almost all over the world. From the west coast of Canada, throughout Latin America, Southeast Asia, Africa. And we need to be able to handle all these challenges, whether it's heat or cold, whether it's humidity or dust, whether it's abuse and impacts from the transport and the handling, and a huge variety of different fuels that are found all over the world. We need to be able to control these elements and harness them. We need to pack it and wrap it up in a handheld tool. Here are 6 key factors that have driven our development to where we are. Higher cutting capacity, good air filtration, good cooling capacity, high power to weight ratio, and a system for good motor tuning. And on top of that, we are very, very proud because we've been able to develop a chain for this machine together with the chainsaw. We are going to talk more about all these things. 12% higher cutting capacity. What does that mean to an ordinary operator? Well, by doing a calculation of this, you might end up with some figures or you will end up with some figures that varies a lot. But I would say to a general figure for a logger, 12%, that represents 1 to 2 weeks saving per year. Who would say no to 2 weeks paid vacation by having a perfect tool to use? And what have we done to reach this point? What have we done to get a good cutting capacity? Well, it's very much about motor layout. Here we have a comparison with some of the models that we have in our range today, and the blue line is 572 XP, where we clearly can see that we are on top of everything here. But even more important than that, we have a very wide usable RPM range. And why is that important? Well, it simply makes the machine user-friendly. It's easy to use because you always, in all cutting situations, you have power available. User-friendliness. Cutting capacity. That is a result of many different things. It's a result of the power we have in the motor layout, where we have the power, but it's also very much a result of the cutting equipment that comes with the machine. Here we can see the combined result of many different factors, and compared to 576 and 372, we are about 12% higher. Power to weight ratio. That is also something that we always talk about when we talk chainsaws. That's a way of comparing machines. We want to have power, but we want to have light machines. We have in this project thought a little bit different. Weight is not always weight. Weight is also a matter of where you have your weight and how you can utilize the weight in the best possible way. For us in this project, it has been very, very much about weight allocation. If we look at the power to weight ratio of our new 572 XP, you can see that step by step throughout the history of 70cc chainsaws, we have increased this. But what's important for us in this is to never sacrifice the durability. If it stops, you have to fix it. That's what George told me. I have to fix it, but he has lost one workday. So what have we done? We have worked, of course, a lot with weight reduction. We have reduced the diameter of the flywheel to gain acceleration, to gain speed, and to save on weight. And there are many other components that has been a part in this. But we have also utilized the weight savings that we have achieved to put it on components that we know that they need to keep up year after year, day after day. Like the crankshaft, the main bearings, cooling fins, muffler, and many, many other things. Cooling capacity. If we want to develop a high-performing engine, if we want to have high power, it's always a matter of cooling. We have increased the cooling capacity of the 572 XP with 20% compared to older generation chainsaws. And how has that been done? Well, there are so many different things we've been working with, and I will mention a few of them. This is very tangible. We have developed a new material and created a heat barrier between the cylinder and area where the temperature is in excess of 300 centigrades, and the carburetor area that we always want to keep as cold as possible to get functionality, to get good restarting of the machine. And to get to this point, we have developed a material that has extreme good insulation, but also that is lightweight, integrated in the cover, and of course it has to be heat resistant. Other things that we've been working with in the R&D process, of course, digital prototyping, flow analyzers, where we can see how we utilize the airflow that is passing through the motor and the cooling fins to reduce the temperature, and get immediate feedback from this. Doing design changes and see that, yeah, it had an impact. I have gone from blue to red, or I've gone from red to blue. Also, some parts to illustrate that is the crankshaft pin that we made like a tube, hollow, to reduce the temperature, to improve the lubrication of the motor. And result of this, we can see in this chart here, where we have the 572 at a way lower temperature than earlier models. So cooling of a two-stroke engine, that is fundamental for the endurance and for the lifetime of the machine. We've been working with flow simulations where we can see that by doing changes in the airflow, we get immediate effect. We can reduce the temperature in various parts of the machine. One other example of the digital prototyping and the results is that we can detect hot areas in the cylinder, we can see the changes, and we can find ways of handling that. Here is one small example where we have opened up a port, a small slot for ventilation between the transfer ports to cool off that area. That is on the exhaust side, which is normally the hottest area and most sensitive area of a combustion engine. Data collection. This is important for us. We have never ever had so much user data that we can utilize in our R&D process. Today we have tools for collecting data from the field, knowing exactly how machines are performing, how they are used, what RPMs they are running at, and taking that information into the R&D process and utilize that in the design of the machine. Engine control. We have also integrated a system in the machine that controls the motor functions. We have an overspeed protection. We get a controlled restart. We can reduce the internal crankcase pressure by changing the timing of the ignition. And that result of that will also be a reduced engine temperature. Optimized filtration. A chainsaw of this size consumes around 30,000 liters of air per working day. 30,000 liters that has to go through the air filter. This has to be very, very good. Every dust particle that comes into the motor will cause a microscopical damage. Filtration is fundamental for a long engine life. Here is a picture I got from Australia, from one of our test users some weeks ago, where he was so amazed of the filtration capacity. It's a dusty environment. He showed that, okay, this is the outside, the dust particles. By having the system that you have developed, all the dust particles, they are kept away from the intake. That in combination with air injection, that was invented by Husqvarna many, many years ago, and it's been a success story since then. That filtrates away 98% of all the incoming particles. On top of that, to even furthermore improve the filtration, we have different air filters depending on the working conditions. For humid weather, for hot climate, for dry climate. So, as I've written on the top here, good air filtration. This is fundamental for a healthy motor. Auto-tune. We have taken this to a second level. We have now 10 times quicker motor tuning in 572 compared with older machines from Husqvarna. This means that after the first few cuts, the motor has calibrated itself. It adjusted the air and fuel mixture according to the local conditions, the altitude, the weather, the temperature, the fuel, the energy content in the fuel. And we're also collecting way more data than we did before to calibrate the motor. We have a broader adjustment range, we have a quicker tuning. We collect data over a broader RPM range, and we have integrated a lean-out protection. And of course, environment. This is always a challenge for us, and we handle that in a very good way. Due to new modern ways of thinking, designing machines, keeping control over the engine, and having a good cooling capacity, we can get a perfect combustion, and we can meet the regulations that exist today all over the world. And we can meet the regulations that we can foresee in the future. And we are very, very proud of that. And by that, I would like to hand over the word to a colleague and a great contributor to this project, Mr. Mattias Karlsson. Thank you.
So, proving point number 6, a chain. What does a chain bring to a chainsaw? Isn't a chain just a chain? I think that we have proven with our first X-Cut chain, the SP33G, that the answer is no. The answer is we can bring a lot of things with a chain to the chainsaw. And what we see here, actually, why do we spend 1 billion SEK into a new factory in Husqvarna? And the reason is we want to make these things better. To have the right chain together with the right chainsaw, that will mean that we can add cutting capacity. We can make the daily life easier for a user. The X-Cut C85 is now the first real professional chain. And it's also, I would say, the first time where we actually have developed the chainsaw together with the chain to make sure that we can bring out the best out of the chainsaw by adding the chain. Working together to get an optimal performance. In this case then, the X-Cut C85, and what we see, what it brings, we see that it is a vital contributor to the 12% cutting capacity increase. The way we have designed the chain, the cutters, the geometry, the material, heat treatment, the chrome layer, everything, the small things that we get into the chain to increase cutting efficiency. So we add productivity, but we also add maintenance to make it easier to maintain the chain. We talk about low stretch, pre-stretch operation in the factory to reduce the need to tension the chain. We add a feature that we call sharpness that lasts. The chain will stay sharper longer, so the user don't need to sharpen the chain as often. And we have also then a golden tie strap. What does that make? Yeah, it's a small thing, but in the daily life, make it easier to find where does the chain stop? Where does it start? How do you file it? And where do you find that? Small things that will contribute to the chainsaw performance. From a technical side, what we see here, it is a traditional 3/8. It's a 1.5 millimeter full chisel cutter. So it's not revolutionary in that sense, but it's in the small detail where we get a better chain adopted for our chainsaw. That's what we see here. And it will be aimed at our professional chainsaws, our larger professional chainsaws. It has been developed together with the 572, but it will also then later on be added to our professional chainsaws. So, cutting efficiency, sharpness that lasts, low stretch, easy to maintain, all about adding output, adding productivity to the 572 XP. And that's one proving point. And we will see that up in the forest later on, test it, compare, think about what does the chain actually mean for a chainsaw. Margareta, I think it's you again.
Yes. Thank you, Mattias. Thank you, Arne. Thank you, Gent, for those fantastic deep dives and showing us what's the story behind. So we've heard about the legend. Our last keynote speaker is also a legend of its own kind with incredible endurance. It's my pleasure to introduce the president of the Husqvarna division, Mr. Pavel Hyman.
Thank you, Margareta. It was a new epitome there. So, honored guests, Husqvarna fellows, it's with great pride, tremendous pride that I stand here in front of you today. But I think most important is that it has been fantastic to see my colleagues and the pride that they have shown here today standing in front of us, introducing the new generation of chainsaws from Husqvarna. And it's really with equal tremendous great pride that all of us stand here today, because we can once again demonstrate that we are the innovation leader in professional chainsaws. The leader that time after time, since 1959, when we started to develop chainsaws, really has pushed the industry forward, setting new standards and really making sure that professionals around the world stay safe and professional, stay safe and productive in their work. And those of you that know the history of chainsaws, you also know that Husqvarna was actually the first one to introduce the chain brake. We were equally much the first ones to introduce the anti-vibration, making the whole chainsaw much more ergonomical for the user. We also put heat in the handles to make it again much better for the user. And as was mentioned here by Arne, also the air injection for the chainsaws to take away the residues. And now with the new generation of chainsaw, we are again setting a new standard for the industry, raising the bar on productivity and endurance to a whole new level. In our industry, just as well as in the world in general, there is of course an escalating awareness of sustainability. And we can see an increasing appreciation of battery products coming more and more into the urban environment, which I think is very favorable for all of us. And indeed, we are also catering for that needs already today through a very good professional as well as a consumer-oriented assortment of battery products. But of course, we cannot stop there. It is also very important that we continue the development of the petrol chainsaws and also other petrol products used in the forest industry, as of course a mean to improve the sustainability and the reduced impact that we do. And of course, there will be for a foreseeable future a need for a combination of battery products and petrol products. There's no doubt about that, and both needs to be contributing to the sustainability. Some 30% of our land area on the globe is actually forest. And without doubt, forest plays a very central and vital role in securing our sustainable planet. And also, without doubt, trees are actually one of the best renewable resources available for us. And naturally, we are also committed to reduce our own impact on the environment in our own manufacturing process, in our distribution process around the globe. But we're also, of course, committed to develop high-quality products that enable sustainable forestry, products and solutions that keep our users safe and improve the working environment for them. And also, of course, that supports authorized management and harvesting of the trees. And we believe that innovation is really the key to sustainability. Innovation built on understanding the needs of the user, just as was told here earlier today, whilst at the same time reducing the impact on the environment. Innovations that at an increasing pace actually stem from the digitalization learnings also. And we call it Sustainovate in our own company. The 572, as you have heard, is an ocean of innovations. Innovations that makes this chainsaw into a productive powerhouse with proven endurance and will take professionals to a new level of productivity while being kind to the environment. Very soon, you will have the chance to test this product. And actually, this is also the two first products in a family that is going to come in the coming years. So please watch out for that. With those few words, I would like to thank you for your attendance, for your participation here today. I would also like to thank Martin Feller, our managing director of our Swiss company here, and his team for helping out in arranging this. And of course, last but not least, a big thanks to all the Husqvarna team that has been here and developed the product, but we also have a very large group of people at home in different places in the world that has contributed throughout years to this development. So a sincere thank you also to all of you. Thank you very much.
So, that marks the ending of the indoor session. Some practical information. We will now divide this group into two. We're actually 200 people in this room right now. So